This is a Tab Media special report on some of the agenda items in front of the SBC Executive Committee today and tomorrow. I'm Jennifer Rash, and joining me is Amy Whitfield, Associate Vice President for Convention Communications of the Southern Baptist Convention Executive Committee. Wow, Amy, what a title.
Yeah, it's kind of a mouthful, and writing it out, at the bottom of emails and things like that, whenever it goes, it's like, whew, takes a little bit of space, but
That is right. So an impressive title, and how special that I got you. Wow, how about that?
Well, I am glad to talk to you and to the great folks in Alabama. So,
well, good deal. Well, Amy's actually in Nashville at the meeting. She slipped out for just a minute just to share with us. And so, gosh, there's, the normal February meeting of the executive committee. Yes. But it's a little different in that this is the first in-person gathering since last February, correct?
That's right. Everything that we have done since last February has been over Zoom and really has been pared down. We couldn't have any of the regular meetings when the annual meeting was canceled last June in Orlando. There's always an executive committee the day before that meets on site. And so obviously that got canceled. So there was a kind of a special meeting after that. Same thing in September when it had to get canceled, there was a special meeting. But in both of those cases, it was like, what is the absolute kind of minimum of what needs to be done? Mm-hmm. And let's do that, take care of business. But this time we're actually getting to have a real fleshed out meeting. So it's kind of exciting to come back together.
Can you tell, what's the tone like, the flavor? Were they excited to see each other?
Yeah, I think so. What is also different is because it's the first time to come back together because of COVID, but we're also, people are happy to be together, but we're also in a really different type of scenario. There are still some stipulations in place. A lot of them, just wanting to take care of our board members and guests who are here, but also some of them just put on us by the city of Nashville and the state of Tennessee, just to be super careful. So we're not at our building this time. We're at a hotel nearby because we needed rooms that were bigger that we could spread out in. So you got, seats are 6 feet apart and folks are kind of spread out at the tables. Everyone's got temperature checks, masks, things like that. So there's been a lot of work to make it a very COVID-friendly gathering, but it also means a lot of awkwardness because folks are seeing each other for the first time, but they don't go up and hug. They don't, shake hands. They're trying to figure out, tap elbows, wave, fist bumps, things like that. So it's kind of a neat reunion type atmosphere, but also that, kind of being careful too. So it's just been great though to have everyone in the same room, to see each other's faces, to hear each other's voices. And it makes such a difference to be able to just make eye contact in a way that we hadn't been able to do. So.
Well, I was thinking about it this morning, looking over the agenda, and I thought how important that it really was that this one could be in person because of, honestly, some of the topics that are going to have to be addressed.
Sure.
And I don't know how far you can get into it, but could you give us some idea? There's a lot of information floating around. Baptist Press is promoted, not promoted, but written, reported on. The Alabama Baptist, Tab Media, we've reported on it. Many Baptist publications have all of this strained relations going on with some of the entities and within the bigger Baptist family. Can you speak to any of that, and is that being talked about?
Sure, and it is at different levels depending on what the issues are. So you have some things that are just a really normal business that are happening, and everyone comes to do that. We're doing things like the allocation budget being on the agenda like it always is, things that were sort of held over from last year, kind of your boilerplate stuff that this board is accustomed to dealing with. But of course, there are conversations about things that are going on, developments that have come with some of the entities, and those issues, whether it's the ERLC task force report, which will be on the agenda, or some of the questions that have come up about NAM and, things going on with Southwestern Seminary, things like that. Those are all on the agenda. Now, how the how the trustees here discuss them, the actions they take. I don't know. I'm kind of waiting, with everyone else to see. But it is a real demonstration that no one's hiding from that. Like, it's not, something that's being talked about out in the hallway, but not really being addressed. Folks are kind of dealing with these things very straightforwardly, and they are all showing up to be a part of it, which I do think is something that we have all missed over the last year, because we haven't been able to come together, both in board meetings all over our conventions entities, as well as the annual meeting that we missed last year. Sometimes things just, are kind of building to the point that we really need to all get in a room and talk. And everyone is ready to do that. So those things are developing. I mean, at the beginning, what we have is we have committee meetings, and those are open to the public, but they're not on the record in the sense that we're not live streaming them, things like that. But then the things that come out of those committees, they'll be in the plenary discussion tomorrow, and they will be on the record. Everyone will be talking through this, wrestling through it in a way that's as transparent as possible. So yeah, they're being talked about here. We'll see sort of what develops out of them.
Well, I can imagine the hallway discussions. And I think what's on the top of my head would be, which you mentioned already, the task force report from the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission and Dr. Russell Moore, and where that lands and what they're going to do with that. The North American Mission Board, and the issue with the state conventions, and there's some concern about funding and how that's done. The 6 seminary presidents and their conversation with the Black pastors, and some issues related to critical race theory. Let's see what else we come up with. The Southwestern Seminary trustee conversation coming out of the lawsuit. And then I noticed on the agenda that Lifeway has a ministry assignment change. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, that's correct. So when we have all of our entities that are doing what they do, we have an organization manual where every entity has its mission statement and its ministry assignments. And part of the reason for that is to make sure that we don't have a bunch of entities that are all doing the same thing, or maybe there's something that is a priority for Southern Baptists, but there maybe at one point is no one that's really doing it. So how do we figure out the best way to do it? And so each entity has that in the organization manual. And whenever there's a change that needs to happen, that actually comes through the executive committee. And one reason is that the executive committee keeps track of everything. And really that's where the overlap question comes in, that they're able to see the whole picture and make sure that we don't have, everybody working on the same thing, kind of butting into each other. So it's kind of an organizational, logistical role that is very important, because you got to have some people who are able to see the entire picture. So with a lot of the changes that have happened at Lifeway over the last couple of years, but for sure the last year, some of the things that they're doing differently means that there are some things that were in their ministry assignments that they aren't really able to do anymore, or they're not doing because of the changes they've made, or maybe some things that they're sort of taking on or doing in a different way. And so their board worked on how to make those adjustments so it brings the ministry assignments in line with the services they're providing, what they are doing. And so now that their board works with the executive committee, has come and they work with the executive committee, they've brought that. And so now the executive committee board will talk through all of those sort of changes. So then what you see at the end is a real picture of kind of what a Lifeway Christian Resources in 2021, what they're doing, because their assignment may not fit with what was needed back in 1990. Because things have just changed, needs have changed out there. So that's an interesting discussion for sure. And when that happens, the executive committee will then make a recommendation to the annual meeting. So it's just one more part in the step. And then once it goes through the annual meeting, whatever comes out of that will go into the organizational manual, and that will be their ministry assignment.
So So is it fair to say that a lot of the work happening right here is setting the stage for the business that's going to happen in June at the annual meeting? Is that?
Yes, so there's a mixture of actions. Obviously, the executive committee, they act ad interim for the convention, which means that the Southern Baptist Convention only exists for 2 days a year. And so you got to have some folks that are able to make sure the lights stay on, you know, for the other 363. And so the executive committee has the ability, that's part of their role, is to do that. Sometimes that means there are ways that they are able to act. And then sometimes they're doing work throughout the year to recommend something to the convention at the annual meeting. And that's a very important role because some of these things require a lot of background information, a lot of research, a lot of working together and talking. And those are things that we just don't have time for 10,000 people to do in 2 days.
Can you
So
imagine?
that's right. So part of the role when they recommend something is they're really doing that work on behalf of the convention to then come and say, when they make their report, you know, if you think about it, if you've been there, that the executive committee comes and makes a report and they maybe have 11 or 12 different recommendations. That's what they're doing. They're bringing the work that they've done throughout the year, but then saying, we're not the final word on this. The convention is the final word. So now we're going to present to you the work that we have done and let you make the final decision. So it's a mixture depending on what it is, as far as what they will do. So the allocation budget is one example that they do every time. That's a budget they will recommend to the convention. So the convention will actually make the final decision, but they're going to do the legwork to sort of crunch the numbers, make sure everything is as it needs to be before they bring it.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And I know if someone were concerned, say just random Baptists out there, there are executive committee members from every state. So that would be a starting point for someone. If you had concerns, you could start with the members from your state to have conversations to find out more how they think through and do this legwork.
That's right.
From there. And then, you know, I noticed that Chairman Slade said that he was wanting more transparency in these types of meetings. So part of the reason why I think it's being live streamed, the plenary sessions anyway, tonight and tomorrow. So all of this working together, does that seem to bring some kind of camaraderie to the table now, where people can sit in an environment and culture where it's so toxic everywhere else? Are they coming together?
I hope so. That's what we really want to see. And I think one thing that is very important to remember is that even in these moments where there may be tension or folks may have different perspectives on something, everyone is still showing up.
That's good.
And as long as people are still showing up, then we still all have a mission that we care about, and we're trying to get there together. And I think that's what's really important. And so, you know, we do a lot of this over the 2 days, business that's going toward that end, but there are other things that are happening. You know, tonight will be a plenary session that is live streamed, that is going to be much more sort of mission focused. There will be addresses from the president, J.D. Greer, from Dr. Ronnie Floyd as the EC president. He'll be talking about Vision 2025. We'll hear maybe a few words from Rolland Slade. And there's a time where it's really saying, okay, let's keep our eye on the ball. What's the mission? What are we trying to accomplish here? And so when everyone shows up, it still means that we all want to work together. We want to solve our problems because we really care about getting the gospel to the ends of the earth. And so as long as people are still coming, then I'm glad. I think that's good.
All right. Well, the sessions that will be live streamed will be 6:30 p.m. tonight and 12:30 tomorrow, and the link for that will be in the show notes. And you also can find all kinds of reports wherever you get your Baptist news following these 2-day events, I'm sure. Well, Amy, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you for having me. We appreciate all the work that you do in Alabama.